Hello and welcome back to my channel. For those of you new here, my name is Leah and I make book content, anti-Amazon, live my best life, went on a little ramble in my last video. Feel free to check out why you should support independent businesses. Yay! So I'm here to do a tag that is at least 2 months out of date. By the time this is uploaded, we're well into August. Mid-year is, what, July 1st at a push? I'm gonna do the mid-year freak out because I really wanted to, and then I was at home when it happened. Now I'm here, doing it in August. I'm sorry, reflection is hard, but as long as it happens, that's all that matters. Going through the list here was actually really quite difficult because I thought I'd had an okay year of reading. Like, I'm basically at my Goodreads goal. I thought I'd read some alright books, but as I was going through, in reality, 10 of them were The Princess Diaries. A huge chunk of them were rereads, which I feel like doesn't really cover any of the categories that get listed here. And so in reality, I was only left with like 12 books to pick from. So I've got a wee stack. We're gonna go through the questions, grab a brew, I've got water, and we'll get through this together. It's gonna be okay. Pretend it's still June. Pretend the world wasn't good in June. Pretend whatever you want. Reality is fake. Okay, best book in 2020 so far. I have two for this. One, I don't currently have a copy of, and it's Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I kind of forgot I'd even read this book in 2020. That's how long ago it's been. And I went on to buy my own copy, even though I borrowed it from someone else because I loved it that much. And then the other book I would choose is If We Were Villains by ML Rio. This was so good, and I mean, I've made the comparison before. I read The Secret History last year by Donna Tartt, and even though they're basically the same story, I found this one so much more enjoyable. Like, I think I gave The Secret History like 4 out of 5 stars, but this was a 5 out of 5. I just enjoyed the character development a bit more. Maybe that's part of it. In Secret History, you're kind of not really meant to like any of the characters, whereas in this, they were at least a little bit enjoyable. You kind of wanted good things for some of them, whereas in the other ones, you were like, oh, I wish you'd all been thrown off the cliff. But this was awesome. Recommend this to a lot of people. Think it's great. Best sequel in 2020. Now, I haven't read any sequels apart from rereading The Princess Diaries, so that's going to have to go in here, even though it feels like a scam. It's not really what they're asking for. But then again, they were asking for this whole tag to be done in the middle of the year, and as established, summer's basically over by the time you're watching this, so. Next up, new release you haven't read yet, but you want to. Now, this is a joy because I also don't actually own it. I really want to read The Memory Police, especially when it was nominated for a bunch of translated fiction. Wait, did The Memory Police come out this year? Or was it technically the end of last year? Oh, it was translated in 2019 and it was technically published in 1994. Okay, that's cool. I have another option. I'd love to read Breasts and Eggs. As I established in my last several videos, I'm not buying books unless I end up in an independent bookstore, and then I'm sticking myself to a very harsh list of books that I know I am anticipating the release of. So at some point, I would like to pick that up. Also, the paperback comes out in August, so maybe I'll be traveling about in September and I'll be able to pick it up and get it then. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Today, it was just released. Well, it was announced. Before the Coffee Gets Cold is getting a second book. Amazing! Bookstores around the country are getting signed versions as well, which is just testing my patience. But Before the Coffee Gets Cold last year was one of my favourite books. It was one of those, it hit a lot of notes. It didn't get a full 5 stars, but I kept thinking about it afterwards and just how it was a very wholesome, lovely book that kind of made you feel all warm and fuzzy inside. So more of that in the current economy, please. Next question is the biggest disappointment of the year so far. And unfortunately, that falls on Bodily Harm by Margaret Atwood. For those of you that don't follow me on Instagram, why not? Go do that. Haha, just kidding. It's a good thing I find myself funny. I have set myself the challenge of reading every single Atwood book. And I started my challenge with this one, which honestly was so boring. I didn't care about anything that happened to any of the people. I didn't understand any weak attempts at character development. Luckily, All of the reviews said this was one of the weaker ones, which is cool, but like I really wanted to start on a good note, and I haven't done that. So here we are. You let me down. I am sad. On a slightly more positive note, biggest surprise of 2020 so far, and that goes to The People in the Trees by Hanya Yanagihara. Again, this is a book that I think I only gave 4 stars on Goodreads, but I can't stop thinking about it. Like and maybe that's partly because it was a little bit traumatic to read at the end, but it was so interesting. It was so good. It tackled so much. I just need more people to read it so I can discuss it with them. And also the last chapter really messed me up. Yeah, surprising doesn't always mean good. This was still a book that I would immediately attach a lot of trigger warnings to, because a lot of stuff happened in it. Fave new author of 2020. I don't know if my answer counts. My favourite author has been firmly cemented this year as Madeline Miller. Because end of last year, I read Circe and I was like, this is so beautiful, I love it. It was this year when I read a second book by her that I was like, oh no, wait, the woman is amazing, please. And it also sucks because I know realistically she's not going to be releasing any new books anytime soon. The gap between Song of Achilles and Circe was so huge. Yeah, it's just best not to pin my hopes on that, I guess. Newest fictional crush. The only people I could come up with in this were maybe Michael Moskowitz in the final book of the Princess Diaries series. I don't know. Just when will anyone like silently love me for a year while constantly trying to prove that they're worthy of me, and then come back and just be so bold? The only other person I could think of isn't really a person, but if you've read the book, makes sense. Was it Lancelot or something like that in The Bees? That whole book messed up my brain. So they'd be interacting and talking, and all the main characters would be like having this full-blown discussion, argument, internal dialogue, and then Layleen Paul would drop a line like, my antennas shivered, and you're like, oh my god, they're bees. Oh, I forgot they weren't people, they are bees. Yeah, but bookseller that I used to work with described the whole book as a strange experience full of sexy bees. So clearly I'm not the only one, but I mean, again, that guy sacrificed himself for the bettering of the community. So, colony, hive, I guess. For all of the bees, he sacrificed himself, and that's very noble, even though it meant he died. So clearly I just have very unattainable standards. Cool, love yourself, kiddos. Newest favourite character, same kind of thing. I'm just like, maybe Patroclus. I called him Patty in my head every time I spoke about him afterwards from Song of Achilles, just because he really didn't mean any harm by anyone. He just wanted good in the world. It's not his fault that his boyfriend went insane and like tried to kill a whole army by himself, you know? Yeah, I don't know why I doubt that. He was a good egg. I stand by that. Have confidence in your decisions, Leah. Book that made you cry. I'm not really someone that cries at books. The closest I came to crying was when I finished the first 15 Lives of Harry August. This was one of my uncle's favourite books. He kept telling me how I needed to read it. He kept saying, oh, I'll find it for you and I'll lend it you. I finally got to read it and I finished it. And Claire North's a very clever lady. And again, it felt like a book I really wanted to talk to people about, but in particular, I wanted to talk to him about it, and I realised I could not. So that's the closest I came to crying. Next up, book that made you happy, to try and brighten the mood from whatever the hell that was. I don't have a copy because I borrowed it from my friend, but I had so much fun reading Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. It's one of those books I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun reading it. At the end of it, I had a newfound appreciation for like platonic love and all the wonderful people that are in my life. It was just a lot of fun to read, but I am also very aware of the fact that it is a very middle-class white feminist book. A lot of stuff I couldn't even relate to. I don't know, I've seen a lot of critique being like, oh, this book was so unrelatable. Yeah, I mean, I've never like got coked up in Camden in the 80s. Sorry, I think she's like in her 20s, maybe early 30s. I'm so sorry, that was so rude. Oh, sweet Jesus, I hope she never sees this. There are certain people I probably wouldn't bother recommending it to because they consider themselves too highbrow for that kind of thing. But there are other friends that I think would greatly enjoy it as much as I did. It was so much fun. Most beautiful book you received or have purchased this year. Most beautiful book I have received is actually something I got for my birthday from my friends, and it's On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. I think it's so pretty. Even down to the like hot pink offsetting the autumnal tones. I mean, another book I would have considered maybe is My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Otessa Moshfegh, which also has hot pink text on it, but it has that slightly more old school portrait sitting image. I just think it's really pretty, and I haven't read it yet, which is really snaky of me, but leads nicely on to the next and final question. Books you need to read by the end of the year. So I would quite like to read this, but other than that, I chose 2 more books that I need to read, and they are both actually non-fiction. So I picked up a couple of books on anti-racism and white supremacy, etc. And in particular now I really want to get through Me and White Supremacy with Layla Assad. This I've heard is a bit like almost a workbook, things that you need to do to help you reflect and ways to just improve yourself. So I would really like to get through this at some point. And then the other one, which is also non-fiction, I've had on my shelf for so long now, is Witches, Sluts and Feminists by Kristen J. Soleil. Especially now that I am like super into like astrology and tarot, and I am curious about witchcraft, not necessarily as like a life path, but just like what goes on there. I think anything that brings a sense of community and empowerment is cool. Yeah, I need to get through my feminist shelf. This is the only one that we are saying we need to read this by the end of the year. Okay, so there we are. That was my mid-year freak out. Sorry it's happening in August. Can only apologise for that so much. I'll try really hard to read a lot of books by the time December comes around for the yearly wrap-up. That would be good, wouldn't it? I hope everyone is doing okay. Manchester's just gone into a local lockdown. Trying to be positive, be positive. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to follow me on Instagram. Feel free to follow me on Twitter. I've been very loud over there. I've been not so loud on Instagram, but I'm trying. As always, just thank you for coming and hanging out. I hope everyone is having a good day, a good week, a good month, whenever you're reading this, watching this. Jeez Louise, I'm hungry. Until next time, goodbye, 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 goodbye.